I'm Hannah Goldberg, and this is the High School Experience, where we highlight the perspectives of students and teachers regarding decisions, conflicts, and achievements. Throughout 4 years of high school, students and teachers experience similar situations from different points of view. The goal of this podcast series is to provide multiple points of view so we can better understand one of the most important times in our lives, high school. I went to South Seneca High School, where I sat down with some of the high school teachers to address their point of view on their high school teaching experiences. So let's start by going around and introducing yourselves and what you teach. We can start with you.
I'm Rachel Halleck. I teach earth science and physics.
I'm Karen Sanchez. I teach high school Spanish.
I'm Kate Remick, and I teach 10th grade and 12th grade English and college English.
Okay, awesome. So what inspired you guys to pursue your career in teaching?
I've known since I was about 14 this is what I wanted to do. I've done a few other jobs in the business world, in the hotel industry. I worked at Cornell in plant biotech applications, and I still wanted to be a Spanish teacher.
Yeah, mine was around the same. I was in 10th grade, so around the same age, and I always had loved reading and writing, and I had an English teacher in 9th grade that I really, really liked, and then in 10th grade one that I did not respond well to, and I just felt like the one in 9th grade really loved reading and loved what she was doing, and I could tell, and I thought, I love reading, like maybe I could do that. So, yeah.
I think I was very different. I didn't figure out that I wanted to be a teacher until after I'd finished my undergrad degree. And I was trying to figure out what to do afterwards. I started working at a summer camp, doing like environmental education and outdoor education, and then one of my professors from undergrad had told me about a master's program in education that had grant money for it. And so I decided to go to grad school for teaching, and then it was perfect. It was exactly what I wanted to do. I kind of accidentally became a teacher.
That's very cool. So have any of you worked in a larger school district before? I know that you all work here at South Seneca, which is kind of relatively small. And if you have, like, what are some differences with the size of the schools that you notice?
I have worked in a larger district. It was not as cohesive because it was so large. The middle school and high school were about 6 blocks from each other. Mm-hmm. I taught 7th and 8th grade. They had 2 separate teams in each grade, so I only knew half of each grade level. So on a daily basis, I was constantly seeing children walking around that I didn't know them, and a lot of my colleagues as well, because they worked kind of parallel to my team, but I didn't interact with them. Right now, I'm the only high school Spanish teacher. Then there were 4 of us, and it was just the middle school. Mm-hmm. So department meetings were very large.
Yeah, and that's like one thing that I like is going to like a smaller school and knowing my teachers and like having them know me by name, and it just kind of, I like that personal connection better. So I think that's very helpful for me when I'm learning. Yeah, so, and then as you said, you worked with 7th and 8th, and you said that you're a high school Spanish teacher now. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the challenges, and I know that you guys might all teach or have taught other grade levels before, so what are some of the challenges with working in different age groups? Like, how do they differ?
Yeah, I have a big jump because I teach 9th grade earth science and then 12th grade physics, and it's like readjusting my brain every time the classes switch, and it's nice that between each class I at least have mid-morning break or like a meeting in between, so I have some time to switch. But from a like 13 or 14-year-old to a 17 or 18-year-old, it's like a big developmental shift, and like everything from the way they talk and the way they smell, and, the like things that they know how to do. And well, in physics, you guys know when you're learning. For freshmen, they don't know when they're learning, and so the way you teach is very different.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah.
I teach levels 1 through 5, so when the bell rings, I'm never teaching the same thing ever again. But even with when I taught middle school, I just felt like they were so less inhibited. I could get them to stand on their head and sing the Hokey Pokey if I made it sound like we were going to have so much fun doing this. And and they just did it. They didn't even realize they were learning. And you said it's almost learning by accident.
Right.
You just kind of get them through the motions, and it happens. And when you get to the upper levels, they say, what is it that we're learning? What is my takeaway? Why am I doing this? And they want to understand the learning process, which, I mean, they're both good, but it's just a huge difference in maturity levels and just the way you approach it.
Yeah, I mean, I would second and third that. I think I teach 10th and 12th, and with 10th grade, you are more responsible for teaching them to learn than just the content area, whereas I feel like with 12th grade and the regular 12th grade and the college class that it's more content focused, and I don't have to as much teach them how to learn and how to be students.
How to be human.
And so, like, going back to what you said for Spanish, I know that I've heard and that I've read a lot about how, starting speaking a second language at a younger age it's a lot easier for when you are older and you're, continuing that second language. So do you think that, that kind of ties into them just doing whatever you say just because, if you make it sound fun? So like the age level.
Yeah, in some degree. I think that starting it easier, it's more about just doing activities and staying in the target language. So when we continually use Spanish over and over again, they've repeated it 50 times, then it just kind of sticks. But they didn't have to go down and sit down and study this. You would never sit down a third grader and say, let's study Spanish. So, but yet they just pick it up as we're using it, where I think as an older student, it's a much more concerted effort on a specific target.
Right. All right. So what are some benefits of teaching high school students specifically? If any.
I taught middle school for a year prior to coming here, and then when I was student teaching. And a lot of it, is in high school you are able to teach more of the content and less of the teaching them how to be students and teaching them science versus how to learn science.
Yeah, I think that was common among like all the subjects that we were talking about earlier, how teaching them how to learn comes more in like the earlier stages, and then later you're just teaching them content and they're actually learning. So that's...
I guess I always thought of 10th grade, I mean, even when I was a student, but as kind of the point at which you could start really having like actual human adult conversations with them. And I mean, it varies from year to year. Like sometimes 10th graders you cannot have real conversations with them, but sometimes you can. And with my content area with English, we're reading the text or we're writing, and it usually is an impetus for a larger discussion. And I feel like those are meaningful, thoughtful discussions that you can more so have with older students.
Right, that makes sense. So as a teacher, what do you want your students to walk away with when they leave your classroom for the final time? Like, what's your goal?
Definitely want them to know that the earth is not flat. I think that's number one.
That's not like a real concern, is it?
It could be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you find your globes?
Yes. Okay. And then I'll tell you later about one of them. Got flattened.
See the word? It is flat.
In science, I want all students to feel like they could be a scientist if that's what they wanted to. A lot of kids, especially girls, don't see themselves as being able to be scientists. They see scientists on TV and they're like old, rich white men that have nothing in common with them in their lives. So if I want to make sure that students could see that they could be scientists and what it means to be a scientist.
I like that.
Yeah, I would love for a lot of the kids that are don't take Spanish in the upper levels, they don't see the need for it. They think that I'm not going to be a translator at the UN, or I'm not going to be a Spanish teacher, so I don't need to know this. And I really try to impart on them the knowledge that we need Spanish in not only to the language, that it can be used in any career that they choose, whether it's science or teaching or the travel industry or farming. There's all the vineyards around here. There's so many ways to use it without ever having to leave our county. But at the same time, I'd like them to become global citizens. I'd like them to know that it's a big world out there, and maybe just kind of go and test it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd kind of echo part of that, the idea of it being a big world, and that's what I try to expose them to. I'd like them to leave English class being able to value others' opinions and hopefully not disliking reading more so than when they came into class. Ideally, maybe even liking it, finding that there might be something for everyone, and just feeling like that they're capable and successful in general.
I like that a lot. Well, thank you guys all for coming in and joining me today, and it's been great talking with you. So,
Thanks, Hannah.
and again, it was a great conversation. So, thank you guys again for coming in. You can connect with us on Twitter at FingerLakes1. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Our audio-only version of this podcast is available on iTunes, Spotify, and Stitcher.com. The entire special podcast series episodes of the high school experience are available at fingerlakes1.tv. You can also find our show and local news, weather, and sports 24/7 on the free fingerlakes1.com Android or iPhone app. Thank you for tuning into the high school experience. Stay tuned for our next episode where I sit down with Lisa Chase, the educational director for the Rev Theater Company. We'll talk about the benefits of a local theater program offered to high school students.